Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to welcome you back to the afternoon session. This afternoon, we'll have a theme discussion under the theme Creating Sustainable Society of Peace, a legacy of King Bhumibol Adulyadej of Thailand. I have the honor to introduce to you our four distinguished speakers. Let me start with the first speaker, Professor Stephen Young. Professor Stephen Young is a Global Executive Director of the CAUX ROUNDTABLE, an international network of experienced business leaders who advocate a principled approach to global capitalism. Professor Young was an Assistant Dean at the Harvard Law School and later Dean and Professor of Law at the Hamline University Law School. He is currently an adjunct professor teaching corporate social responsibility at the Carlson School of Management, University of Minnesota, and at the Satsin Graduate Institute of Business Administration, Chulalongkorn University. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Professor Stephen Young. Secondly, we have with us, all the way from Bangkok, Dr. Porametee Vimolsiri. Dr. Prof is a Secretary General of the National Economic and Social Development Board in Thailand. He graduated from Chulalongkorn University with bachelor degree in economics and master degree in international affairs from Columbia University in New York. As Secretary General, he leads the National Economic and Social Development Board of Thailand in implementing sustainable development goals at the national level in Thailand. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Prof. Vimolsiri on the stage. Thirdly, here with us from Austria, Professor Dr. Titus Leber. He has spent more than 20 years in Asia. He knows Asia very well. He is Austrian filmmaker who is a master of multimedia visual. One of his most outstanding works includes the transformation of Boropoto in interactive multimedia. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Dr. Titus Leber on the stage. Last but not least, I have the honor to introduce to you our honorable moderator, Prof. Shakyavongsvisuddhi. He has recently represented Thailand at the 6th Happiness Day as a keynote speaker at the United Nations in New York this year. He comes all the way to Paris from Bangkok. He is also the rector for the World Buddhist University and lecturer at Mahamongkut Buddhist University of Thailand, a visiting professor in many universities, both in Thailand and overseas. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Prof. Shakyavongsvisuddhi on the stage.
Good afternoon. Hope that this morning we had a very good session and we have understood more than what we hoped for why people around the world still love and care His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej, although he had ascended to the heaven a year ago. But his words, his works, his legacies still live on. Regardless of geography, regardless of culture, regardless of religion, everyone seems to learn, everyone seems to have some share with his thought, and so on. And this morning, it shows us all dignitaries from this very auspicious place of UNESCO, even all presidents of Buddhist organizations representing from all over the world. Everyone knew His Majesty well than many of us here. So, this afternoon, we have a very lucky, I have to say that we are very lucky. Each speaker here, actually not easy to book or confirm easily. Everyone is very busy, and they are the best in what they do. As MC has introduced that we have Professor Stephen Young, all the way from America. But of course, although he's from America, I always say that he's a true fan of His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej. We have second speaker, Dr. Porametee, who is the Secretary of the Economic and Social Development Board, which means that no one knows how each word and legacy of His Majesty King has been implemented to reality. We might heard from this morning's speeches that His Majesty is multi-personality. His Majesty was, I guess, that a multitasking person who have his finger in every field of human life, especially Thai and, of course, neighboring country. But we really don't know how it really displayed in the life of people. So he's the right person to tell us that what is the policy in Thailand going on. Whether king's word is just a king's word, it's just a philosophy, it's just a word for reverence, or it is actually something every one of us, all Thai, all global citizens can follow to gain what His Majesty's always dream for, the world peace. We have Professor Titas Laber. Again, second to none. He has been doing this, what he calls interactive program. And he has presented about 17 years ago the holiest and holy place of Thailand, Wat Prakyaw or Emerald Buddha Temple. Presented in a way that no one can imagine. And who knows, all those very advanced technological presentations was completed in the auspices of His Majesty King himself. So, we come to the point that if we are going to talk, deliver, again, one of the paper will be mine alone. So if we have something around every one of us was given an hour. So if you have to entertain you with 4 hours very serious lectures, I'm afraid that at the end of the talk, we'll be talking with all the chairs here. That's why I take liberty and consult with every speaker that would they mind if we change the pattern? Would they mind if we change the style of our presentation in a way that more lively, and would like to invite all audiences to be the part of this presentation as well. So therefore, what we are going to do in a way that instead of giving a very straightforward 1-hour lecture each, we are going to throw maybe a question and answer, or maybe even whatever we have to share with you guys here. So first of all, as I appoint myself as an MC here, or the moderator here, so I will try to keep my words the last one, but the first, let us hear about what Professor Stephen has to say, as I know that in a one way or one or two occasion, he has an occasion that he got an audience with His Majesty, late His Majesty King himself. And I says that I know from a long friendship that he's a real fan of the late Majesty. When we heard the news of His Majesty's passing away, I still see his face. We can't stop our tear falling from our eyes, our face. Our voice was very shaking whenever we refer to the late Majesty. And I was thinking, how can he's American so far away from Thailand? But the love toward His Majesty is no border, no geographical distance. We love him just same as his own son. We love him just same amount of love every Thai citizens have towards His Majesty. So, Professor Steve. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished venerables, distinguished delegates, excellencies, good afternoon. I have some serious remarks I want to give you, and my theme is that the legacy of His Majesty Kun Bhumibol and Buddhism are two things which UNESCO can take and incorporate in its work dealing with cultures and issues around the world. I want to suggest as a layperson that there are universal aspects of Buddhism in a practical way, which His Majesty made real, which can be applied by every person if they want to, and all around the world. But before I start, I have some introductory comments. The first is, in walking here this morning, on the fence outside this room, there is a picture, a UNESCO picture of the stone inscription of King Ramkhamhaeng from Sukhothai in Thailand. And he was also a great Buddhist king who was very famous for ruling justly. And the famous phrase I learned when I was a teenager in Thailand, Nai na mi khao, nai na mi pla, right? There's rice in the land and there's fish in the water. But the more important part, perhaps, of the King Ramkhamhaeng inscription is the passage about the bell. King Ramkhamhaeng put a bell outside the palace in Sukhothai, and any person in the kingdom who felt that he or she had been wronged could go ring the bell, and the king would come to establish justice. And there's a picture of that inscription outside the UNESCO headquarters. This goes to show that the Buddhist tradition of leadership is a very old tradition. Secondly, I'm very honored to be here speaking at UNESCO for kind of an odd reason, which is that in 1966, in a village in northeast Thailand, I stumbled, fell on the ground, and I was on top of some old pots. And so I am credited with discovering the Bronze Age culture of Banchiang in northeast Thailand, which today is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So since I'm a discoverer of a UNESCO World Heritage Site, now I have the chance to speak in UNESCO, and it is an honor for me. We are here today to take wisdom from the thinking and actions of His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej, the 9th king of the Chakri dynasty, for our constructive use in creating sustainable societies of peace. But before I go on, I would like to begin with a personal disclosure, because this fact shapes my personal appreciation for the work of His Majesty as King of Thailand. His Majesty and my father were good friends. My dad, Kenneth Young, was Jack Kennedy's ambassador to Thailand in the early 1960s. He met frequently in private with His Majesty, and from time to time shared with me his feelings and judgments about His Majesty's ideas and plans for Thailand. One of my dad's stories about His Majesty resonated on the social justice issue of judging other cultures. So some of you may have seen, there was a movie back then, 1962, I think, called The Ugly American. The world premiere was to be in Bangkok. The actor was Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando was playing the American ambassador in this Southeast Asian country. And the king, their majesties, the king and queen, were going to attend the world premiere. President Kennedy heard of this and was not happy. He considered the book, The Ugly American, an unfair attack on his new frontier doctrine of containing communist subversion in villages around the world. He took the book and the movie to be an affront to the American mission of defending freedom. President Kennedy then instructed my dad to call in the king and ask the king, as a personal favor to President Kennedy, don't go attend the opening. So His Majesty heard out my dad with respect, and then he smiled and he leaned forward and he said, "But Ken, you Americans have the movie, The King and I," which was about His Majesty's predecessor, King Rama IV. His Majesty once said, "A nation is made up of various institutions in the same way as all the organs which make up a living body. Life or a body can endure, can be sustainable, because the organs, large or small, function normally. Likewise, a nation can endure because its various institutions are firm and fully discharging their respective duties." Here we can hear His Majesty speak of what today we call sustainability. And our topic is sustainability in peaceful societies. But bodies can die and nations can fall apart. His Majesty was wise in that knowledge too. He once said, quote, the publicized danger is communism, but the greed of our own people is more dangerous. If we clash too much among ourselves, we will become slaves of what I call the new imperialism, be it communism or dictatorship or whatever," close quote. Where there is greed, His Majesty argued, there will be disruption of proper order among institutions and thereafter a loss of national well-being. The foundations for peace will crumble away in discord and self-promotion. I was honored to have only one audience with His Majesty. It was in 1984 in the Grand Palace. His Majesty, in a quiet but firm voice, shared with me his concern for the future of Thailand. And with due respect for the venerables in the room, His Majesty was worried about the Sangha, that the Sangha itself was not impervious to temptations and inner motivational and emotional perturbations set off by greed. He was worried that if the Sangha itself could not rise above material possessions, money, and the embellishment of temples, then how could the Thai people and the Thai political leaders, generals, civil servants, party potentates also keep their equilibrium intact? We are here today and tomorrow to reflect on His Majesty's contributions to peace and to learn from his wisdom and example. What then is peace? Let us begin with a definition, that we may justly and properly assign credit to His Majesty's thinking and example. Peace is bonding together. When the world is broken, it will not be peaceful. The word peace in our English language, following the Latin usage of pax, is derived from the Indo-European root of pag or pack, which means to fasten together. Another derivative of the root is pacici, which means a bargain or an agreement. To pacify had a meaning of to bind together by agreement, to make a pact. Peace is bringing people together. not having them fragmented and separated. Thus, peace demands people binding themselves together through an intentional meeting of the minds. In other words, peace cannot be imposed. It can only be willingly accepted by those who are going to live with each other peacefully. This very understanding of peace was confirmed by the famous Roman writer Tacitus when he wrote, "Solitudem faciunt, pacem appellant." They left desolation and solitude, and they called it peace. In other words, in his day, the armies would leave everyone in solitude. They would go through and destroy and leave people alone and cut off and broken apart. No community, fragmentation. But they called it peace because people were quiet. Today, our world, in many ways, is broken into fragments. People are not in agreement. They do not feel bound to one another. Some are terrorists, striking out at those they deem to be heretics and heathens. Others are inspired to separation by convictions of conscience, ethnic antagonisms, national ambitions for hegemony, or economic inequalities. To what can we turn for binding up the wounds which are triggered by our human nature? His Majesty King Rama IX provided us with two practical answers taken from the first teachings of the Buddha. And here I want to speak in lay terms about the application of Buddhism in our daily lives. In front of these venerables, in front of Dr.Anil Sakya, descendant of the Sakya family, I am in no position to speak and talk about Buddhist philosophy and theory. But His Majesty took these ideas and made them real and practical. First in politics, and second in the economy and business. He proposed for politics the Buddhist principles of the Tosapit Rajatam, the principles of the righteous ruler, the righteous king. And secondly, he proposed sufficiency economy principles. Each of these things is taken from the Buddha's teachings and applied to the problems of our times. Buddha presented his understanding of the human condition as a pathway to sustainability. There's an analysis of the early Buddhist teachings of the Buddha himself in his first basic sermon, which relates to sustainability. He talked about the Dharma. Now, the Sanskrit root of the Dharma, which I have learned from Dr.Anil, means to sustain, to live effectively without regress or unnecessary hardships and loss, to be a flourishing part of the eternal during our conscious time in the middle of events. The Dharma has a meaning about us, the way we live in the world from morning to dark. The root dur means to hold, to maintain, to keep, to hold up. It can take on the meaning of what is established or firm, and hence can be used in the sense of a law, which was the way I was told when I was first in Thailand. Dharma means the law. It may mean something more practical as well, sustainability in life. How do we get there? Now, I want to add at this point the teachings about the kilesas. At the center of the Buddha's teaching is a recognition of an internal weakness. Our emotions give rise to destabilization and unsustainability inside ourselves. They prevent us from being as firm, as steady as we might, and as is possible if we understand the Dharma. These inner sensations and motivations, states of mind and heart, separate us from what is established and firm in the world around us. This separation causes us pain when we become aware of our weaknesses and when we run into opposition and frustrations or we fail in gaining our objectives. These internal emotions are called kilesas. The Dalai Lama refers to them as afflicting emotions. They cut us off from flourishing and from a sense that all things are going well. They interpose their powers to build a wall between us and what is around us, preventing us from benefiting from reality. But the wall is not outside. The wall is only in our minds and hearts. We actually imprison ourselves. So the key to freedom is in our own minds. Classical Buddhist texts list 10 kilesas: greed, hate, delusion, conceit, wrong views, doubt, torpor, restlessness, shamelessness, and recklessness. Now let me read you something about my country, America. A recent survey by the Pew Research Institute of Americans reveals the kilesas at work in my country today. Quote, Americans deny the other's facts, disapprove of each other's lifestyles, avoid each other's neighborhoods, impugn each other's motives, doubt each other's patriotism. You may have seen the dispute over the last week and weekend about American football players, whether they will stand up for the national anthem or sit and take a knee and protest. That's all an issue of impugning different people's patriotism. Americans can't stomach each other's news sources and bring different value systems to such core social institutions as religion, marriage, and parenthood. In short, there is little social, cultural, or political peace today in my country. The bonds of bringing people together are broken. Now, if we look quickly at these kilesas, how do they deny us access to the Dharma and sustainability? Greed forces us to look at things and others as our personal property. We exploit them. Hate acts similarly to greed. It pushes us into opposition with others in the world. Delusion misguides us, blinds us to reality. We cannot be sustainable if we don't know what reality is. Conceit is another form of delusion with similar effects on our ability to recognize the Dharma. If we're conceited, we just think about ourselves. That we have all the knowledge and insight, not the Dharma. When conceited, we think the world is made subject to our rule. We think we are in charge. Wrong views are another form of delusion. They arise in our minds when we trim and cut down for our own purposes what we see and what we learn from other people. We don't absorb a lot. We package it, we make it small. And wrong views often arise when we rush quickly to assumptions, when we leap to inferences. Doubt is a weakness of spirit. We lack a firm attachment to the world and its possibilities. When in doubt, we hesitate, we don't act appropriately. Torpor, slowness, holds us back. Restlessness, on the other hand, moves us too quickly. We don't reflect. We don't establish firm connections. Shamelessness is another version of conceit. Recklessness comes when we have wrong views and delusions. How can we overcome the kilesas? Now, if the kilesas, as I suggest, are a root cause of not having peace, a root cause of unsustainability, then UNESCO ought to pay attention to the kilesas and what we as individuals can do about them wherever we live. UNESCO should take a special interest in Buddhism and the recommendations of His Majesty. I think the Buddha's sermon, his first sermon, where he talked about the Noble Eightfold Way, is one way of confronting the kilesas and dealing with them. Right understanding, right intent, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. We can talk about these more with you and with the panel. Now, but how do we get to follow the Noble Eightfold Way? Is it easy? My sense as a layperson is we need some inner power in order to follow the Eightfold Way to minimize the kilesas and have peace. These would be the barami in Thai, barami or parami, or virtues. Generally, the virtues require self-control. They restrict our ego. They give us a sense of we have to focus ourselves and we have to focus our power. We have to take our self-nature and align it with the Dharma. So the basic parami or parts of our character: generosity, virtue, renunciation, wisdom, energy, patience, truthfulness, determination, loving kindness, and equanimity. Each one of these characteristics, ladies and gentlemen, are part of our character. We can assess ourselves. How much generosity do we feel, do we show? We can train ourselves to be stronger in the virtues. Now, what happens when we get to organizations? I've talked before about individuals. The Kalisas operate inside individuals. Individuals can follow the Noble Eightfold Path. Individuals develop the virtue of the different paramee. When we move to organizations, companies, governments, the Dharma does not change. The sustainability of organizations also turns on minimizing the Kalisas in the people who are in the organizations. You have to look at the organizational culture. Now, the Dharma, when applied to the leaders of organizations, is what? His Majesty King Bhumibol talked about, particularly once I remember 6 or 7 years ago, I think. I thought His Majesty said something terribly wise. He was taking the oath of judges who were being appointed to be judges in Thailand. And he said, in his very sort of mild, offhand way, he said that it is the function of the king under the Tosapit Rajatam to provide justice for the people of Thailand. But the king can't be everywhere. The king needs to work through judges and other officials. He said the judges in particular, and this goes back to the inscription of King Ramkhamhaeng of 1200, I think, 1180, something like that, about justice, that each one of those judges carries to some extent a little bit of the Tosapit Rajatam. All government officials, and you can extend this actually to private companies, people in positions of power need to think about their virtues and the Tosapit Rajatam. These are standards by which we judge the quality, the goodness, the effectiveness of political leaders. The Chronicles of Ayodhya, of the Kingdom of Ayodhya, there's this description, several hundred years ago, of a Theravada ruler. It is customary that a great king of kings who upholds the 10 kingly virtues be compared to the shelter of a great bow tree, and that people come to seek the protection of the king's accumulated merit with the hope of escaping various calamities. King Bhumibol, as you've heard before, used his accumulated merit to help the Thai people escape various calamities. Another passage from the Chronicle said that because the king was endowed with the 10 royal virtues, he was immense, with the magnificence and marvelous merit of boundless wisdom and a potent force and great power to pacify royal foes. His overflowing caring practices indicated that the gods of creation, preservation, and destruction were manifest in him. Part of his virtue was to have compassion for all and to encourage the populace towards peace, happiness, and joy through his excellent justice. These are Theravada Buddhist standards in the history of the Thai state, which His Majesty would talk about. The first of the Tosapit Rajatam is dana, giving. The second is sila, the personal capacity to live by norms and good practices, to have self-control and self-restraint. That King Bhumibol won for himself the reputation as a king who never smiled, testified to his self-control in public. Rectitude and formalism are necessary in the conduct of a truly royal person. Parasyaga, this virtue requires sacrifice for a greater good. It finds echoes in King Bhumibol's following his own path with respect to development theory. This is a larger story that people need to study. He did not accept what the academics in the West and the UN experts and other people said about how to develop Thailand. He thought for himself. He followed his own path, thinking about Buddhist values. Ajava. This virtue is capacity for loyalty to standards above and beyond self. Truthfulness and honesty. A righteous king is there to serve something higher, the good of the people, the standards of Buddhism, not just to enjoy what comes with a royal status. Madhava, avoidance of arrogance in thinking. King Bhumibol was scrupulous in presenting his ideas as suggestions, not as commands. In that comment to the judges, he didn't order the judges to do this. He merely suggested that they think about the Tosapit Rajatam and how they were going to act to bring justice to the Thai people. And, Evan talked about it, the way he resolved many critical political confrontations by not being arrogant, not imposing his will, but by suggesting to the different political leaders and factions that they needed to back down, back off, work together for the Thai people. Tapa, self-discipline. King Bhumibol often demonstrated his preference for simplicity in refusing to expand royal residence and in personally working on carpentry, building his own sailboats, sailing small sailboats, painting, taking photographs, hands-on hobbies. Koda, purging anger. In his 6 decades on the throne, there is very little evidence of King Bhumibol expressing anger at anyone. Avihimsa, a capacity for living without harming others. Again and again, King Bhumibol placed himself as king in a position of complementing other institutions, not taking over from them, but complementing them. As he said earlier, the different organs and institutions in a nation, they all have a role to play. The press, the army, political parties, the National Assembly, business elite. He sought balance and equilibrium as much as possible, rather than dictate his own preferences. Kanti, patience and perseverance. Avirodhana, reaching out to rectify misdeeds. In the political crises of 1973 and 1992, King Bhumibol reached out to try to correct misdeeds that had gone on, to find a counterbalance, to blunt the selfish ambitions of military leaders who would provoke violence out of regard, the king's regard for the evolution of the country towards more responsible governance. That's in politics. Now, what about business, finance, and the economy, economic development, the material world? Poverty and want, any lack of worldly power or means, encourage our minds to make a home for the Kalisas. That's why, from this Buddhist perspective, poverty, hardship is hurtful, because it encourages us to bring into ourselves these Kalisas, these divisive things which prevent peace from coming up. But on the other hand, wealth also can corrupt our mind and drive away stillness, equilibrium, and equanimity, and we lose enduring happiness. Having too much or too little upsets the balance of the Dharma in our lives, distracting us from keeping our feet firmly on the ground as we walk through life. Therefore, conditions of peace require attention to business, finance, markets, and economic development to keep the Kalisas down. His Majesty was keenly aware of this need to bring right mindfulness to economic activities for the individual, for the business firm, and for the nation. He promoted a doctrine called Sedikit Popian, translated as Sufficiency economy. It's a recommended set of best practices. It's not highfalutin Buddhist philosophy. It's best practices, to be very practical, which prevent shortfalls and overreaching. It's skillful risk management. It avoids disappointments, stress, and anxiety. The principles upholding His Majesty's doctrine follow a middle path, producing continuous and self-sustaining equilibria, always a balance in the economy, business, and finance, in the play of supply and demand. By keeping this way, you're closer to the Dharma, you're upholding things, you're minimizing the Kalisas, you're creating conditions for peace. There are three basic criteria. One is risk management or moderation, category of sila. Systems thinking, if you will, or fully using your mind, your cognition, not closing yourself down, samadhi. And three, personal resilience, always being there, moving forward, your feet on the ground, not being knocked off your balance, panya. Risk management is following the moral sense. It's gaining your virtue and character to align with natural tendencies, building up the paramee, your virtues. Two, taking a systems approach is being multidimensional, knowing a lot of things about interactions which shape causation, not just focusing on one single thing. And being resilient is making yourself immune to fear, anxiety, dissonance, avoiding the hurtful consequences of change, seeing what's coming, dodging when you have to, keeping in tune with what is real, not delusional thinking, and flourishing under the circumstances, being balanced and centered, as so many Buddhist monks teach us. Sufficiency economy is actually another version of corporate social responsibility, now sustainable development at the United Nations. His Majesty was outlining this decades ago. Decades before Western scholars were talking about corporate social responsibility, and decades before the United Nations adopted 17 goals for sustainable development. In 1999, the National Economic Development Board adopted the King's idea as the guiding principle for the 5-year development plan of Thailand. We can go into that, I think, later with my colleague. Now, is this practical or not? Our Center for Sustainability Management at the Sassoon Institute of Business Administration at Chulalongkorn University in Bangkok has devised an assessment process for companies which scores them according to the sufficiency economy principles, the three I mentioned, and it includes knowledge and integrity. High scores are given for full alignment and low scores for poor alignment. That means we have a technique in Bangkok which can be used to assess any company in the world for alignment with underlying Buddhist values. American companies, French companies, German companies, Chinese companies, companies in Taiwan, companies in Malaysia, in Penang, can be assessed for how they think about things from the point of view of the middle way. And then three of my colleagues at Sassoon, Professor Patnaporn, Kunvasin, who's a graduate student, and Professor Kunnik and Kunvasu, created a scoring philosophy for Thai companies, and they looked at the Thai companies on the stock exchange as to what's the relationship between a good Buddhist company, a company that scores high for sufficiency economy, and their risk. And the data indicate that companies that score high in terms of Buddhist values have low risk. What economists will tell you is that low-risk companies are worth more. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude here by suggesting that what His Majesty did in his very gracious and quiet and almost self-effacing way was to take these fundamental concepts of the Buddha in the first lesson and then subsequently developed about how we can be with the Dharma in life to become sustainable, to have as the wheel of the Dharma turns, it's not up in the air. It's something that has contact with the ground as we move forward. We can do this in politics, through the Tosapit Rajatam, to provide justice. We can do this in business, to provide sustainability. And ladies and gentlemen, let me submit to you that when politics is just and the economy is fair and productive, people will come together, they will agree with each other, they will bond, and there will be peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. When I was designing this whole program, I was thinking to myself, this event is organizing by the World Fellowship of Buddhists. But when I was looking at all the speakers and the participants, I was thinking there is a shortage of a monastic in this event. And here we are, Professor Steve. I think he has done the good job of a Buddhist monk here. I don't know what I'm going to say now, because all the Dhamma teaching, he has already done a work of giving sermon to audience here. He has said about the first sermon. He has said about the 10 virtues of the king. He has talked about the sufficiency economy, how it related to Buddhism. So in a way that this is how we create the peace. Peace is not something we talk about. Peace is something we have to build. We have to develop. And how we develop, how we build, is all the different way. And His Majesty was a great example of doing that. So in this first round, Professor Steve has really enlightened us and more or less has shown what is Buddhism all about, which is supposed to be my job, but I have to really honor that I don't know what I'm going to say in my term. So let's listen to our Excellency here, who is the General Secretary of National Economic and Social Development Board of Thailand, which means that what he said is something already in action in the Thai development plan. In other words, this is the man who drew the development plan of Thailand. Whether Steve says that Thailand has developed, and we have heard from this morning that Excellency, the Thai ambassador, says that how Thailand has been developing. And all those roadmap of development under the guidance of the late Majesties, and who make those guidance, materialize those guidance to a reality, to give happiness, to make this Thai society a sustainable one, and to make this world peace, is something very daring part of the job. And here's the man who has been doing all this under his sort of a title, under his positions. Please, Dr. Porametee.
Excellency, Honorable keynote speaker, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, it is my true honor to be here today and have a chance to give a keynote speech here today, especially having heard the name of His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej and his legacy, honor, and echo in this hall since the morning. And to be among all of you, I have stronger hope for the world of peace and sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, as we adopt the Development Agenda 2030 with the commitment to achieve Sustainable Development Goals, all members of the United Nations agree that sustainability is the ultimate goal for 5P: restoring peace, saving the planet, create prosperity, partnership enhancement, and nourishing our people In the case of Thailand, we have adopted the sufficiency economy philosophy, or in short, we can call the SEP of His Majesty the King as our guiding principle for the country development in the national plan since 2002. The philosophy emphasizes people-centered and balanced approach to sustainable growth. It is also focused on building resilience against internal and external shock. In every step we take, it must be based on knowledge, understanding, reasonableness, prudence, and virtue. SEP would remain the guiding light for our endeavor for achievement of SDG, along with the other national plan of Thailand, be it the 5-year national plan or the long-term national strategy. So in this talk, I would like to focus on the sufficiency economy philosophy. I think start by giving some basic principle of sufficiency economy philosophy, and then explain a little bit how the SEP has been adopted to Thailand development plan, and then give some example of the application of the SEP to the SDG. On the definition of the sufficiency economy philosophy, in 1999, my office has been assigned to work together with a group of scholars to try to define and come up with some short definition of sufficiency economy philosophy of His Majesty the King. So we try to research and then look at His Majesty remark which he has made on various occasions, and from the practice in numerous royal development projects. His Majesty has approved the definition we came up and sent by His Majesty Principal Private Secretary to our office on November 29th in 1999. The definition, let me read for you. I think the definition states that the sufficiency economy is the philosophy that stresses the middle path as the overriding principle for appropriate conduct and way of life of entire populace. It applies to conduct and a way of life at individual, family, and community level. At the national level, the philosophy is consistent with a balanced development strategy that would reduce vulnerability of nation to shock and excess that may arise as a result of globalization. Sufficiency means moderation and due consideration in our mode of conduct, and incorporate the need for sufficient protection from internal and external shock. To achieve this, the prudent application of knowledge is essential. In particular, great care is needed in the application of theory and technical know-how, and in planning and implementation. At the same time, it is essential to strengthen the moral fiber of the nation so that everyone, particularly public official, academic, business people, and financiers adhere first and foremost to the principle of honesty and integrity. A balanced approach combining patience, perseverance, diligence, wisdom, and prudence is indispensable to cope appropriately with critical challenge arising from extensive and rapid socio-economic, environmental, and cultural change occurring as a result of globalization. That's the definition we have summarized. From the definition, you can see that the sufficiency economy philosophy state, I think, some guidelines, I think, which are quite interesting. I think, firstly, SEP can apply at our level of the economy and society, from individual, family, community, and at organization or at the national level. Secondly, it stressed the concept of middle path to avoid extreme thought, excess in behavior and action. The philosophy specifically urged us to accept the force of globalization, but using knowledge to harness the good force and mitigate the bad force. Thirdly, the philosophy also states the three core elements of SEP, namely moderation, reasonableness, and built-in resilience or self-immunity in face of challenge. And fourthly, I think it emphasized the two conditions under which the philosophy will work best, namely the application of appropriate knowledge and genuine value, such as the honesty, perseverance, tolerance, and desire to share with others, especially those which have less privilege to ourselves. Thus, in practicing the sufficiency economy philosophy, these three interlocking core elements are very important. I think that this diagram is the one that we try to disseminate the sufficiency economy philosophy in the simple and easy to understand diagram. So the first feature, moderation. The SEP urged people to be moderate. It's moderation in the sense of not too much or not too little is an Eastern concept and may seem sometimes contradict to the notion found in traditional economic theory of maximizing behavior. However, we should note that moderation is the relative concept, one that relates to one means, because we all live with limited means, individually, locally, or globally. So one should consider exercising moderation in order to protect longer-term interests. The second circle, I think the second feature is the reasonableness. The decision concerning the level of sufficiency must be made rationally with careful thought of the factor involved and careful anticipation of the outcome that may be expected from such action. And the third circle or the third feature, the emphasis on self-immunity and risk management. SEP recognize that circumstances that influence our life are dynamic, so it advocates good risk management. This advice apply to also individual, organization, or the nation. So the emphasis on risk management lends SEP an element of universality and also contemporary salience, giving the importance that the concept of the risk management is important in today's turbulent time, as well as this emphasis has also played a key role in the business and economic literature. The fourth and fifth components, I think, of course, the two rectangular box under the diagram. I think the fourth feature of SEP is the pursuit of knowledge. Knowledge is the necessary condition for SEP. It encompasses both the tacit and explicit knowledge, including experience as well as the appropriate analytical ability. The theoretical knowledge should be used with caution at all times and should not lose sight of the critical geo-social differences that are rooted in specific local conditions. A single universal formula applied everywhere is almost sure to fail. The fifth element, I think, in the second box is the emphasis on ethic and moral consideration. Traditional economic theory does not address moral condition explicitly. However, in the SEP, virtues such as the sharing, caring, and altruism have received increasing attention in economic thinking and research. In recent years, good corporate governance practice in business and governmental organizations have also emphasized ethics as a core value. So the emphasis of the SEP on ethics and moral consideration reflect the uniqueness and foresight of this concept in the SEP view. An ethical foundation is as vital to our economic system if the latter is to be sustainable. So such a foundation must be rooted in the value held by the majority of the people, and as a result will foster human development in a way that is successful and sustainable. So this philosophy, which a way to try to disseminate for the people, I think that to understand, I think also can be translated into some simple guidelines, such as always be aware of what you are doing, be honest and persevere, take a middle path, avoid extreme, be sensible and insightful in taking decisions, and also to always build protection against the shock. Let me now talk a bit about how this philosophy is applied and become the integral part of the thinking and planning for the development in Thailand. Thailand has considerable step in national development since the country first economic and social development plan in the 1961. Development from the first through seventh plan resulted in notable improvement in the national economy, but lead to unsustainable development and negative consequence for society. This problem brought about the adjustment to the process by which the 8th plan was formulated. I think at the time, I think I just graduated from abroad and were the junior, I think, officer in my office. Our Secretary General, who worked closely, I think, with His Majesty in His Majesty the King Development Project, and always follow him around, asked our office to change the way we work. So he asked us to go and listen to the people before we write the plan. He asked us to listen to the people, to learn from the king, to study, I think, what people want and what the condition that they face, not just to go and then tell them about what we will write for the next plan. I think we also assigned to think about how to utilize and develop the country with the local wisdom and indigenous knowledge. So I think just graduated from abroad, I was confused and divided. How can we develop the country with the knowledge of the poor local people, and what really is the indigenous knowledge. I think how little do I know, I think, back then. But that has changed, I think, Thailand in terms of how we plan and develop the country. I think learning from His Majesty the King practice. So the plan process was turned upside down, I think, from the top down to the bottom up, and then the concept of the people-centered development was also launched, and the idea of the process of the development progress shift towards a holistic approach that aim to incorporate the economic, social, environment dimension since the 8th plan, so almost more than 20 years ago. However, once we realized, I think, what we have to change, the development was hindered by the 1997 economic crisis. I think the 1997 crisis was, of course, caused by some mismanagement of the economic policy, which give the people wrong incentive, but also for the investor, business sector, and common people. They were also overwhelmed by the illusion and excessive greed and risk-taking, which hasn't been kept in the check or in control. So the king then remind the Thai people of the concept of the sufficiency economy principle. In spite of the difficult circumstance at that time, the sufficiency economy principle was the remind to the people and widely accepted in Thai society during that time. The 1997 financial crisis is the key turning point also which have changed, I think, our heart and mind and pay attention to the sufficiency economy philosophy. The development, I think, in Thailand, I think we realize that being overly reliant on the global economy and export and the global financial market without building strength and resilience from within would leave the country fragile and susceptible to the external shock. Many business and entrepreneurs went bankrupt and people become unemployed. It was fortunate that Thailand is a country with extensive agricultural land. Therefore, many people return to their home in the countryside to grow vegetables, to farm fish, and were able to survive happily and sufficiently. Having said that, it doesn't mean that we intend to close our country or did not see the importance of the global market. I think this is usually a common misconception about sufficiency economy philosophy. SEP does not teach us to underproduce or to consume thriftily. It stresses that whatever we do in our life, it must be based on knowledge and understanding and reason. It must be proportionate to our need and our circumstance, which vary from one person to another. Whatever we do, we must do it with mindfulness and moral value. While we gain, we must not harm others, nor the society, nor the environment. We adopt, I think, this sufficiency economy philosophy formally in our 10th National Economic and Social Development Plan and follow in the 11th plan. The current plan, which is the 12th, I think starting this year, is the first 5 years of our new 20-year country national strategy. So with this first long-term strategy in Thailand, we continue to apply sufficiency economy philosophy as the guiding principle. I think try to be reasonable. I think look at the external, internal weakness and shock which we may have to face and what we have to try to build. I think our protection. So in our 20-year national strategy is to aim for the balance and sustainable development, I think, for our country. And then we see the challenge and shock which may occur in the future for Thailand, such as the aging society or the natural resource and then security in terms of the energy, food and water, for example. So the country strategy set target, I think, for this the vision of the security, prosperity and sustainability in accordance with the principle of sufficiency economy philosophy. So in the Thailand public policy framework, namely the Constitution, the 20-year national strategy and the 12 5-year economic and social development plan have been formulated in the same direction. And it's all sectors in the country will be to move in the same direction to achieve sustainable development and leave no one behind. Apart from the application of the sufficiency economy philosophy from the ground in Thailand, from the village and farm level to the application and practice of the company, business sector, financial sector, and national plan, we also feel that the sufficiency economy philosophy can be applied and benefit on the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals or the SDG. We believe that the development approach based on sufficiency economy philosophy is in line with the principle of the 2030 agenda and can be one of the approach to support the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals. This is given the fact that philosophy stresses the importance of the development which bring growth and income and enhance the well-being of our people while taking appropriate care for the environment. Let me provide you, I think, one example of His Majesty King Bhumibol initiative, which seem to apply the sufficiency economy philosophy into action. His Majesty actually have more than 4,000 government projects, I think, in Thailand, and 6 royal government study center. The Royal Government Study Center scattered throughout all the region in the country and be the prototype for agricultural development in each region. Each center represents the regional, local characteristic and address the problem particular to the area. I think the study center in the central region, I think, focus on the soil development. The study center in the south, I think, focus on the water resource development, reforestation, and the soil improvement. In the study center in the eastern, I think, area, I think, is well known for sustainable mangrove forestry and the conservation of the coastal environment. And in the northeast, I think the center focused on the soil erosion control. In the north, I think the place emphasis is on the watershed conservation and reforestation and agricultural development. And in the southern province, I think the center concentrate on the management of the low-lying mass with the peat soil. So there's a lot of the example that the sufficiency economy philosophy has been analyzed and then applied to solve the problem in the individual, I think, area. I think in all of this case, I think the king practiced in the carefully, I think, learn the condition of the socio-economic and geographical, I think, information of the area, and then learn, I think, what people think and their behavior, and try to apply advanced technology in the appropriate way and use the natural way to solve the problem if possible. I think are the practice that's always been applied to all of this project. So we think that in the many cases, I think this experience show that it can be applied to the Sustainable Development Goal, especially the SDG 1 in terms of the reducing poverty, and also the SDG 2 in the reducing the hunger. So in the Thailand experience, I think although we have been successful in the reducing poverty, I think in Thailand we have reduced the poverty from 57%, I think in 1990s, I think now down to less than 10%. And we achieved, I think, many progress in the Millennium Development Goals, but also the inequality still persists. So the government, I think, try to encourage and support poor family in using the SEP as the guideline to make a living and manage the household to increase the self-reliance. There are model villages to practice the sufficiency economy philosophy. 878 villages, I think, around the country to try to increase the income, reduce unnecessary expenditure, and promote community welfare using the sufficiency economy philosophy project. To end hunger in the SDG 2 and achieve food security and improve the nutrition, I think Thailand also continue to ensure access to food that is safe, nutritious, and sufficient. I think by also apply the sufficiency economy to the farm and the village level, emphasis on the new theory of agriculture of His Majesty the King, which I think involve more than project which we invite, I think 20,000 farmers from more than 800 districts to join on the voluntary basis to apply His Majesty the King Bhumibol new theory to their agricultural area. So I think these are the experience with we think I think the sufficiency economy philosophy can also be shared I think more widely and then be useful and contribute to the challenge of the Sustainable Development Goals. So in the conclusion, I think we believe that the legacy of King Bhumibol Adulyadej in giving us the sufficiency economy philosophy is universal. It can be applied in many circumstances at all levels in all the context. It can yield concrete result and tangible income in not only agricultural sector but also in the industry, business, economic, financial, the government sector, in small community or large metropolis. Everyone, be the politician or the government official or farmer, entrepreneur, can adopt philosophy as their guiding concept. As I mentioned earlier, SEP is the development guideline, so everyone can design your own SEP, can design your own sufficiency economy practice related to your own issue and context. You just need to think of the basic 5 components of SEP, know what you are doing, and be honest and persevere. Take a middle path, avoiding extreme, be sensible and insightful in taking decision, and build protection against the shock. So let's design your own sufficiency mindset and practice to achieve sustainable and happy world. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Prometee. I guess that he is truly Secretary General of the Economic and Social Development Board. He led us with a lot of survey, a lot of numbers, a lot of proof that things has been going on. Not only kind of saying, but it is proven by all the data, all the surveys. And especially the whole idea of a SEP, Sufficiency Economy Philosophy, which the late Majesty has invented, has innovated, is something really become a key to a development project in Thailand. And that development project is not only kind of development which shows the government is successful, but in fact, it is a success of the very low ground. The actual plan, the actual program, it was not from big universities abroad, but King's suggestions to this board: go down to the people. Listen what they need. Listen their indigenous wisdom, technique, technology, and only bring all those things. Open wide your drawing maps and only draw your plan how you want to grow, how you want to lead your country to. Such a marvelous guidance. It was not the development plan thought by the cream of brainy people of the country, but the true government, true development is from ground, bottom up. So in a way that the benefit of that development spread far and wide. Well, from 2 speakers, we have learned so much. We have learned especially about SEP, which stands for Sufficiency Economy Philosophy. And of course, Sufficiency Economy Philosophy, it's become a guide, it's become a torch, not only for Thailand. Again, it has become a very powerful torch to show the light for the world. How we can bring the whole issue of sustainable development goal, which, as Dr. Prometee said, by 2030, how we are going to reach that level of the world to that level. And SEP, Sufficiency Economy Philosophy, is one of the very powerful light to show us, to guide us to reach that very aim, to reach that prosperity, the UN, the UNESCO, and everyone on earth looking and waiting to see that. So, in a way that we can experience the happiness, we can experience the legacy which His Majesty always dream of. I guess before we continue to a discussion, it is based on the program, it is my task to deliver my presentation. I was thinking that as being a moderator, I'll be the last. But I thought that the last one has to be a very delicious sweet, a cake. So I guess that if we bring cake before the meal, the taste of the cake will spoil the whole thing. So therefore, we have to keep the very delicious cake as the last item, the delicious. Sorry for that. So let me do my job and see what I can bring, because as I said, most of what I have to say already spoken by our Venerable Steve, who has taken the job of a Buddhist monk here. So I don't know what I'm going to take. So I have to change the role as a Harvard professor, I guess. I don't need this. Your Excellencies, Venerable monks, all religious leaders, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. I am very honored to be here in this very important place on earth, what we call UNESCO. This is a place where we talk, where we come, work together to make this world a beautiful place to live. We plan each other with our representative from each country, and we draw our plan that how we can deliver our best of our education to our future generations, how we can use the knowledge of science to a more innovation and creativity. This is where all the culture, all the religions come together and make this earth, make this planet Earth, very beautiful bouquet of flowers. So in a way, today we are here, not only for that purpose, but we are here today to remember, to think, to go through the wisdom of someone who has led, who has imparted, who has given what we call a wisdom for this world. The late Majesty, King Bhumibol Adulyadej of Thailand. Just to give you a little background, I would like to recall my personal story, personal anecdotes, so that for someone who is not familiar with what was going on in Thailand, may able to even connect that feeling. It was on 12th October last year. I was our only Buddhist monk in a Bangkok's 5-star hotel, attending a conference on business under the organization of Sustainable Brand to the all CEO of business big corporation of Thailand and abroad. I was alone, of course, in that crowd. But I noticed something going unusually, very noticeable atmosphere. It's sad, it's solemn. So it was something going on. But I couldn't figure it out what was going on, because at that very moment, as one of the speakers on the panel, one of the speakers as a keynote speaker for the conference, and especially I have to impart a speech about all business. So I was very busy with my own idea that what I'm going to speak for those business CEOs. Once I got into the stage, I did my job as what they wanted me to do, gave my thought about how do you do your business, as a sustainable business in this modern world. But I notice the faces, especially Thai people there, they are not happy as I used to be. I used to notice. Thailand is always known as a smile, the big smiling face, Thai smile. But on that particular day, I noticed that I couldn't see that smile on those Thai faces. But I couldn't figure out what was going on. I went down from the stage. Then some ladies came and whispered me that, "Venerable Sir, have you heard about His Majesty King? We have heard something bad news about His Majesty King. You have inner connections with the palace. You might know what was going on. The whole Bangkok, whole Thailand is in a rumor. They are not stable at the moment." So I was shocked to hear that. And I didn't know anything about that. Then I started to really put my feeling what was going on. Why the smiley face of all those Thais just disappeared from their faces. Then I left that conference hall and rushed back to my monastery. On the way, I again noticed that Bangkok was unusually quiet. All the busy streets, it's so quiet. It is so scary. I asked the driver, "What happened? Where are all those people? This is not a weekend. This is supposed to be a very, very busy traffic day. Why today there is no traffic? Why I didn't see people walking on the street?" The driver answered me, "Venerable Sir, haven't you heard that Our Majesty passed away?" I said, "What?" "Yes, the rumor is going on everywhere that he has passed away." So every single Thai, they stopped working. They have stopped what they are doing. Everyone is rushing to the hospital. Everyone is in very sad moment of their life. This news really made me feel very bad. I couldn't compose myself. I picked up my phone and tried to call few places. Then I realized that it was true. The late Majesty was in very critical situation. As the speculation and the rumors was going on that His Majesty has passed away, it was not true. But His Majesty was in serious, serious situation. So I thought that's why all the smile from Thais has disappeared. What we are seeing is totally opposite. All the smiley face, just turn it down and see that a lot of people's eyes are filling with tears. And I went back and looked at the news, looked at the television. I noticed that every single Thai with their yellow shirts or pink shirts, which has meaning because yellow shirt is supposed to be for the king because he was born on Monday, and they believe that yellow is a color for Monday. So everyone is putting that yellow shirts, and everyone is rushing at the hospital. Hospital ground and surroundings over there are very crowded, tens of thousands all around Thailand. They are just going there. Want to know what happened to their beloved king. Want to know that whether the rumor was true or not. Finally, that things, we don't know what was going on. The rumor was so bad. And it's kept on going on. All the Buddhist temples, hearing the rumors, we don't know what to do. All the Buddhist monks, 30,000 temples around Thailand. Every abbot of Buddhist monasteries gather all those monks, their monks, to the main shrine hall. Everyone started to make a chanting in unison. Everyone trying to meditate, hoping that their tiny love and respect, hoping that everyone's power of mind can help their beloved king. It was not only the monks. All those Thai people who loved king so much, they don't know what to do at the time. They also started to pick up the chanting book. And they all started to chant Buddhist prayer in unison, hoping that their beloved king can recover from whatever disease he was suffering. Some people saying that, I am willing to die for His Majesty King. If I can take that pain and suffering of His Majesty King, I am more than happy to do that. Let His Majesty King live beyond what's happening. While this all the turmoil going on, it's going on for the whole day. Imagine the rumors. Imagine the up and down of every psychological state of every Thai people. Then this went on for 2 days. And finally, on the 13th of October 2016, the Royal Palace put the announcement confirming the demise of the late Majesty. We heard, quote, His Majesty has passed away at Srira Hospital peacefully, unquote. A palace statement said, adding he had died at 15:52 Bangkok time, 8:52 Greenwich Mean Time. This ended late Majesty's title as the world's longest reigning king. And suddenly, the world witnessed the cry of Thai people everywhere over their greatest loss. Nobody imagined that they cried. Many say that they cried more than their own parents passed away. So the whole nation immediately fell under a psychological state. Everyone cannot bear themselves. They can't compose themselves until it's become a national crisis, a very poor psychological state of the country. Ministry of Health have to come and issues, bringing in all the psychologists and guide the nation, guide the Thai people. How do you cope with that greatest loss? It's become a phenomenon. It's become a very big for Thai people. Their beloved king is not with them anymore. Imagine, for 77 years, they have lived with the guidance of the late Majesty. For some people, it is more than living with their own parents. And suddenly, the line post the wisdom, the guidance is not with them anymore. Today, it is 346 days after the death of the late Majesty. Already 346 days, but if you go and see back in Thailand, people from every part of Thailand traveling to Bangkok, where the royal body was enshrined in the royal urn in the Dusit Mahaprasad throne hall in the Grand Palace. People will be waiting in queue for 5, 6, 7 hours, not eating, not sleeping. They will wait and wait, regardless of a raining, regardless of how hot it is. For what? Just to have a glimpse of the view of that royal urn, as though they have seen their beloved king there. Just for a tiny second, people waited for 5, 6 hours. Who can imagine that kind of love can get by any single being? The statistics shows that at the moment, until today, 346 days, over 10 million people has been paying respect to the late Majesty. And those all, as the speaker has said, the peasant, the farmers, from all those poor people, when they came, when they visited the king, they don't know what to do, because they have been receiving from the late Majesty all their life, and they don't know what to give back. Each single peasant of farmers may have 10 baht, 100 baht, 500 baht. They are donating, hoping that that will at least make some of the arrangement of his royal funeral would be making easy. All those donations from the poor people, imagine, it's already exceeded something around 20 million euros. Everyone is giving with their own heart. Officially, there is no donation is asked. Officially, everything was given free. Even the food, even the water, even the people are giving. The royal family was giving for the people. But that love and respect people showed to the late Majesties was extraordinary. It's unprecedented. This is some tangible sign how people have loved their king. The late His Majesty's corporal body had left for good, but his legacies live on every clod of soil, stream of water, stream of rivers, space on the sky, in the forests of Thailand, and every heart of Thai people. The king died, but not his legacies. His legacies live on and still give happiness to his subjects without his corporal presence. Now it is our duty to transform his dream to reality and make his legacies of creating sustainable society of peace and tangible truth. It is on our shoulder. The light has gone, but we should not just leave that light away like that. It is our single duty to make it happen. For whom? For us, for our future generations. So they can live peacefully. They can live happily, just as we have been living. Talking about peace as the main theme of this conference, of course, we have been organizing conference on peace if we just have some statistics about peace conference, I guess that we can't count it. In the UN, in the UNESCO, in all these international organizations, in religious organizations, in all, everywhere, we are talking about peace. Peace is something every single human being wanted, but can't seem to find it. Where is the peace? Some claim that they are for it and that others are against it. Although those against it would probably disagree. As Professor Steve says that peace basically means binding us together, but that whole act of binding keep us apart. We are saying that this is for my peace. This is my peace. And trying to destroy someone else's peace. And this is what the politics about the peace. It's a very good word, but at the same time, it is very, very skeptic in a way. Sometimes we are starting to ask, is there a real peace in this world? Or peace is just an issue for conference and talking? Can we experience the peace in reality, in our real life? Furthermore, even if someone finds that you feel peace, how long that peace lasts? How long you can rest in peace? When we use the phrase, after all, RIP or rest in peace, it is too late. We are already buried under the graveyard. Our body is already burned into the fire, and we say, rest in peace. We don't have to wish for them to rest in peace because they are already rest in peace. The one who are not rest in peace, one who are jumping without peace, are who we are. So in a way that, how can we talk about peace? Of course, UNESCO, United Nations, they are the signposts. They are the big brothers. They are the big corporations trying to deliver the message of peace, trying to deliver how we can experience the peace, and trying to create the atmosphere that we can rest in peace before it is too late. But it looks like it is something impossible mission. But there was a man back in Thailand 70 years ago who went on that mission, who trying to define the peace and search for peace. And finally, he was able to find that very peace. And not only that, he was able to impart that peace for others so that they can share, they can experience that same peace in a sustainable peace. Who has searched for the peace, not by academic field, not by discussions, but by compassion in action. How do we create peace? We have to be compassionate. That compassion is not a feeling, but you have to act upon. We are good at having our own passion for ourselves. Everyone is doing their best to fulfill their passion. But what about common passion? Everyone wants peace. Common passion, in a way, is something about peace. So in order to make that common passion come true, that is what we need for compassion in action. And the very good exemplary of that man was His Majesty the King, who had shown the exemplary of compassion in action for over 70 years throughout his reign. Reflecting upon His Majesty's action, so I came about my own mantra for peace, so that every morning when I wake up, I can think of His Majesty's action and then pray my mantra. That very mantra is, may people everywhere abide by compassion equally. P for people, E for everywhere, A for abide, C for compassion, E equally. Peace. It is not only a fashionable says that peace unto you, peace or whatever you sow your sign, but I would say that it is have to be in our heart, and then chant that mantra. May people everywhere abide by compassion equally. And that is what the late Majesty has shown throughout his life. Of course, my topic given to me is Dharmikaraja, the king of sustainability. So let me talk about something about Dharmikaraja. Dharmikaraja is a title which is very common in most of the Asian religion, be Brahmanism, Hinduism, Jainism, even in Buddhism. It is a very familiar word. It's a textual word called Dharmikaraja or Dhammaraja. The king of virtue, the king of righteousness, the king of Dhamma, the king who upholds morality. So you can translate in very many ways. So what is the king called Dharmikaraja looks like? I don't know how I'm going to explain all this textual, very heavy stuff. So I would like to share with you a few stories of how to be a Dharmikaraja. It doesn't mean that it is only the king. We, every one of us, are king and queen in our own way. So how can every one of us who are king and queen can live by that Dhamma? So my first story of Dharmikaraja. Once upon a time, there was a very pious Buddhist king. The king was not a Buddhist by, let's say, tradition, by your, what we call is your ID card. But that very king was very keen in Buddhism, in Buddhist practice. He studied, he read Buddhist teachings, and finally, he was well known among his subjects in his country that that king was a very profound knowledge, has a very profound knowledge of Buddhism. Seeing his piety in Buddhism, one of the king's senior relatives once suggested the king that he should make a pilgrimage to Buddhist holy sites. If not in all 4 sacred sites, at least he should go to Lumbini, the spot where the Prince Siddhartha was born. The king told his senior relative that, certainly, he would very much like to make his pilgrimage to Lumbini. I will go one day because I am a true Buddhist. Buddha inspired me a lot. But that very one day never materialized by the king. So the senior relative of the king had an audience with the king again and reminded him with his promise to make that pilgrimage to Lumbini. seeing hesitation on the face of the king, the senior relative asked king's permission to offer an arrangement for the king's pilgrimage. Using his senior in royalty, he was forceful towards the king to make that pilgrimage to Lumbini a reality. Finally, the king confessed to his senior relative that, quote, "I personally would love to make that pilgrimage to Lumbini, where the Buddha was born, but I am in a trap of my own vows, which I made in my mind a long ago. That vow of mine was, while my people are still suffering, I will never make a journey for my own sake. Therefore, I feel not comfortable to make journeys while I know for sure that my subjects are still suffering," unquote. The senior relative of the king was frustrated with the king's logic. So he asked the king, "How can your majesty know that your subjects are happy without any suffering? The way I see, they are very happy, and they are happy than ever in the past under your majesty's reign." The king humbly answered, "I don't know, but my mind tells me that my subjects are still suffering." The conversation between the king and his senior relative on making pilgrimage to the Buddha's birthplace stopped there. This is one example of a Dharmaraja. Let me share you with the second story. Once upon a time, there was a king who successfully ruled his subjects with happy and prosperity. One day, the king felt physically very ill, and best of all doctors are gathered to offer the best treatment they got to their beloved king. Diagnosing the sickness of the king, the team of doctors made a conclusion that the king had cardiovascular disease and need an immediate surgery. The doctors suggested the king that he would need to go to some other places where they are medically advanced than his own kingdom in order to get a proper and a safe treatment of the disease. The doctors tried every possible way to persuade their king to go abroad for getting proper treatment of the disease. The king softly thanked all doctors who had done their best for the king. The king then informed his doctors that, quote, "Let me cure my own disease before deciding to go somewhere else," unquote. Doctors ran out of words to offer to their king and just observed their king's condition closely. At the critical time, the king calmly listened to audio tape about Buddhist meditation, which was taught by his chaplain monk when the king was ordained as a Buddhist monk and meditated in deep contemplation. At the same time, the Buddhist monks all over the kingdom meditated and chanted Buddhist discourses for speedy recovery of the king. Miraculously, in the next morning, the king's conditions of cardiovascular got better gradually, till the king restored his health to normal by its own effort. His determination of not to leave his subjects was so strong that he did not give up that vow, even in the time of critical period of his own life. This is a true character of what we call Dharmaraja. Let me share with you another story of the Dharmaraja. Once upon a time, The king was ascended to the throne at his young age. However, the king left his kingdom to finish his education abroad. The king recalled his departure. Quote, "While on the road, I heard someone shout, 'Please do not abandon the people.' I felt like shouting back, 'If the people do not abandon me, then how can I ever abandon the people?'" This is another character of the Dharmikaraja. Let me share with you another story of Dharmikaraja, my fourth story. Once upon a time, a Buddhist kingdom was invaded by communism. Most neighboring countries of his kingdom had fallen over to communism already. The government finds difficult to face with the forceful invasion of communism from every direction. Many anti-government intellectuals fled from urban cities to deep in the jungle to live with guerrilla forces. Many regions of the kingdom already fell under the control of guerrilla forces. It was not safe for civil servants to travel around the region, which was labeled as red or pink region. However, nobody in the kingdom estimated how people loved their king in addition to communist ideology. Everyone assumed that monarchy was against the communism. While the government was weak to solve the problem of communism invasion, it was the king who visited all those underdeveloped areas. Many areas where king visited were publicly labeled as red or pink areas controlled by guerrilla forces. King visited those areas without any fear of getting hurt by guerrilla forces. He visited with full of compassion and tried to understand their problems and tried to help in every possible way to alleviate their suffering. Generally, the king goes to see his personal advisor, a Buddhist monk, each time he gets back from making his royal visits to those communist-infested areas. The king used to report what he had noticed in those underdeveloped areas and asked for help from his advisor. The king asked to send few Buddhist monks to those underdeveloped areas where the king had secretly prepared facilities for those monks. Once monks were in those isolated areas, things slowly changed. Buddhist monks live side by side of the society. Nature of Buddhist practice is not to isolate an asceticism, but to embed themselves within the communities. Naturally, the Buddhist practice gradually destroyed the isolation of communism without even noticing the change. The king's Buddhist monks became change agents in those areas without anybody's notice. Gradually, those red regions slowly transformed to a pink and pink to white. The communism was slowly disappeared from his kingdom. Who can think the king was the person who diluted communism from his kingdom with the help of Buddhist monks? This is another story of Dharmikaraja. Let me give you the fifth story of Dharmikaraja. Once upon a time, there was a king who liked to listen to a sermon by Buddhist monks. On one occasion, a monk narrated a story of previous life of Buddha when he was fulfilling the perfection of perseverance, Viriya Paramita, entitled Mahajanaka, which means the greatest father. Having listened to the story, the king was very inspired and went back to his palace and began his own research of the story from its original scripture. Finally, the king ended up in rewriting the story of his own to fit the modern society and deliver it to his subjects. In rewriting the story, the king presented the story as though it is a story of the recent time, with detailed additions of meteorology, astrology, and modern maps. The king used his rewritten story to encourage a practice of perseverance in purity to his subjects in the right time of economic crisis of his kingdom. The king not only rules his subjects, but always acts as a teacher to his subjects. The king is always teaching different things on spiritual, technical, and occupational guidance to his subjects. This is a task of Dharmikaraja based on the religious text. My last story of the Dharmikaraja, the sixth story, it goes like this. Once upon a time, there was a king who only spent 3 months of a year in his palace in the city. The king spent his remaining 9 months of the year in making journeys to see his subjects in every nook and corner of his kingdom. He traveled not for his pleasure, but to help his subjects in rural and remote areas. The king always carries with him a camera and a map, just as His Excellency mentioned this morning. But His Excellency mentioned the reality, but this is the story. And goes to meet his people in their own homes. This is how the king was updated with everything what happened to his subjects around his kingdom. His people call him a royal father, based on the nature of love and care given to them. The king is friend with everyone and look after them just like his own children, giving medical help for people who need medical treatment, give occupational guidance and financial help for people who face problems with their livelihood, help develop land where such development is needed, build water reservoir where water is shorted, help to protect forests where deforestation is the problem, build water dams to manage excess water, and gives rains with his own technology when water is drought. Even in urban, witnessing the suffering of urban people with traffic, the king designed and construct roads, bridges, and elevated roads to reduce traffic congestion for the urban citizens. Seeing polluted water in Buddhist temples and city canals, the king invented water turbine to treat polluted water. Moreover, the king sometimes intervened with the politics of his kingdom. When political parties fight each other to their own ends without solving the political problem of the country, he guides them like a father guides his fighting children. Imagine, just like Master Ching Kung this morning also mentions, the proper way of ruling the country is just like how father take care of his children. This is why that kingdom is very dear with their king. The people of that kingdom love their king so much. These are 6 different stories of a Dharmikaraja. These are the stories which you can find in a religious text as an example, as a supreme, as an ideal model of what Dharmikaraja should be. Your Excellencies, Venerables, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, what do you think about those stories? Is that possible to have such a man or such a king in reality? Or it is just a story made up by wise to inspire us? Or these are simply good bedtime stories? Whether the ancient notion of the Dharmikaraja has any relevance in today's very different society. In fact, the king in those stories is the perfect model of the righteous king, the Dharmikaraja, which have been referred in all Eastern religious texts. For example, in a Buddhist text alone, once the Buddha told King Pasendi that, quote, "The king ought to rule his country under the principle of righteousness, with earnestness and carefulness in all royal duties, treating his subjects as parents treat their own children." Unquote. The king in my stories exactly rules his subjects as parents treat their own children. The Dharmikaraja is the king who always thinks of his subjects' happiness before his own. In other words, Dharmikaraja etymologically means one who gladdens others with his righteousness. Raja means that one who gives away. One who gives away to please others. That is called king in etymological sense. The dharma here means that people gladdens others, his subjects, with his righteousness. That is a true sense of Dharmikaraja. Will you believe me if I told you that? In fact, all those stories are true stories of the late Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej of Thailand. Many stories are my lifetime stories I have witnessed myself, and some of those stories are so personal to me that I had never told in the public. The first story of Dharmikaraja was a story around 1980s. I heard a story from the mouth of the late His Royal Highness General Major Prince Panupan Yukon, the senior relative of the king in the story, who happened to be my own monastic sponsors. So the conversation which took place between his relative and the king was a true story and narrated to me by the person who was in that story. The second story of Dharmikaraja was a story of September 1982, when His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej was in crisis with his cardiovascular disease. The story was reported by a royal staff to the late His Holiness Somdet Pranyana Sangwan, the 19th Supreme Patriarch of Thailand, while I was listening to the report sitting next by His Holiness at the time. The third story of Dharmikaraja was an excerpt from the personal diary of the late His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej, which was recorded on 19 August 1946. The fourth story of Dharmikaraja was around late 1970s, and the Buddhist advisor in the story was the late His Holiness the 19th Supreme Patriarch of Thailand. And in many occasions, when King came to report His Holiness, I was lucky enough to be sitting and hearing their conversation nearby. The fifth story of Dharmikaraja began around 1977, when the late His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej listened to a sermon by His Serene Somdet Pramaha Virawong of Wat Rajapatikaram. The royal book was widely published, and later the story was presented in so many formats, such as theatrical performance, book, cartoon, movie, and animation, etc. In the process of authoring the book of His Majesty, I was very lucky to be trusted, and I was lucky to lend my hand to be the proofreader of that very draft of His Majesty. The sixth story of the Dharmikaraja, which I told you was a summary of some of the royal activities the late His Majesty had performed throughout 70 years of his reigning period as the people's king of Thailand. So, imagine, there is such a man. We can imagine that we have such a man in this earth who took others people's happiness before his own, who did everything not for his own sake, but his subjects' sake. Venerables, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, that's why we have heard so many scholars this morning mentions again and again that when His Majesty took oath when he was enthroned in May 5, 1960, the very word His Majesty took a vow in front of all Thai citizens gave a promise that, quote, "I shall rule the land with righteousness for the benefit and happiness of people of Siam." This is a true Dharmikaraja. That Dharmikaraja is not living in the text anymore. That Dharmikaraja have come out from the religious textual book and living and breathing among us, who did everything as the happiness for other peoples. So throughout his life, for 70 years, you can see that he has been doing whatever he can for his people. And accordingly, we have learned from earlier speaker that his lifetime achievement was honored even by the United Nations, even by the UNESCO. As earlier, Madam Irina Bokova has mentioned how the wisdom of His Majesty's has been adapted in doing or in fulfilling the SDGs in different part of a 17 indicator of the SDGs. The title as a development king, which was awarded by United Nations, and so on. So this is something very rare to find. We were lucky that we were alive in the period when he was doing all those things. From Buddhist texts, we might call that he was a true bodhisattva, one who doing everything for others. So, just to keep the pictures of what he did for the country, what he did for others, let me read a poem for you. Like the sun, he gives warmth and light. Like rain, he shoots with freshness and hope. Like rivers, he enriches all regions of the land. Like earth, he supports with timeless patience. Like trees, he shelters with resilience and strength. His Majesties, throughout his life, sacrificed every breath, sacrificed all knowledge, wisdom, even royal fun for his own subjects, so that everyone can live in happy and everyone can live away from suffering. A true exemplary of being a Dharmikaraja, one who gladdens his subject with his righteousness. Venerables, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, we have heard many times about SEP, sufficiency economy. Let me give my own interpretation of SEP, which is totally different from our General Secretary of National Economic and Social Development. Of course, Professor Steve has already put forward some of the background for that. Actually, when we talk about the SEP, or sufficiency economy philosophy, which I intentionally changed that philosophy to the principle. I guess sometimes I am a little bit skeptical with the philosophy. Sometimes philosophy is good in debating, good in inspiring people. But when it put into action, sometimes philosophy and action is sometimes they are living in a different sphere, different place. So I change that one to a principle which you can really act upon. So what is basically about this SCP? The first of all, I would like to say that the whole idea of a sufficient economy is, in a public view, it is an oxymoron. Just like the word Buddhist economy, it's an oxymoron. How one can imagine economy as the growth of our national income, wealth, and then how can you say that enough with that? Do you want everyone to be a Buddhist monk like me, who denied the wealth, who denied all the money, who denied all this creation of the national wealth? That is a monk business. So therefore, sufficiency economy, if we put in the word economy as we understood, that is, I call oxymoron. It wouldn't fit with the word sufficiency. Sufficiency means that enough. Sufficiency means that you know where to stop, when to stop. But economy doesn't know when to stop. Economy has to grow and grow and grow nonstop. If not, GDP will down, which indicate that your country is in a bad shape. People are in suffering. So how can you say that? Sufficiency, enough with GDP? No. But His Majesty, the King, used sufficiency economy purposefully, although it is oxymoron. Because if we know the word, how the word economics come all about, the word economy in English actually, going back to around early 16th century, I think about 1530, economy is all about management of household. Economist, what it really means is that a household manager. So the whole idea of economic in original terms, it is about managing your life, managing your business, managing your family. It's nothing to do with the money, nothing to do with the business as per we used to understand. The modern economy is a dismal science. The modern economy is something to gratify your desire, your greed. And if you say there is a sufficiency, it means that you are stopping the whole greed there. So it doesn't work. But the way the king thought of that very word, Setakit Paw Piang, if you know the background, how it come all about, actually the word Setakit Paw Piang or the sufficiency economy is nothing other than the Buddha's own word. Buddha's word, it says that Santutti Paramang Dhanang, that is a Pali, of course, which means that sufficiency is an ultra wealth. When you talk about ultra wealth, what does it mean? Does it mean money? Does it mean all the figures? No. It means a virtue. It means the ethos. It means that something which we develop inside us, the quality. So therefore, when you use the word sufficiency economy, basically what it means that it's a sufficiency is an ultra wealth. So His Majesty King secularized the teaching of the Buddha to fit with all others, be a politics, be a economy, be a family, and make it sufficient economy, saying that contentment or sufficiency is a supreme activities. Because word setta kit, setta means that it is a supreme, the best practice, and kit means that it is action, activity. So basically what King was saying, delivering to the world that how you take care of your life, You have to take care of life to develop that quality that you know when enough is enough. When you know that something which is a balance between your greed and your need. So if you can balance your greed and need, and that is where you find the sufficiency. Because greed never has limitations. And the need is something we really need it. So therefore, the word sufficiency economy, from a Buddhist background, I will say that it is a universal principle which can teach us to balance ourselves between our need and greed. So if we can do that, even in the economic, even in the politics, things can be run smoothly in balance. So therefore, within the sufficiency economy, what we have seen from General Secretary's diagram, there is 3 circles around, which says that there is a moderation, there is a prudence, there is a reasonableness, and we have heard again and again. But I want to bring that to your focus. Actually, all those diagrams and the idea was the king used the Buddhist background for that. So it is a kind of a universal principle which can be used regardless of culture, regardless of geographical differentiations. Basically, king presented those ideas in a 3S. I will change again the General Secretary's definition here, or popular definition used in Thailand. In Thailand, they use moderation, prudence, and reasonableness, which sometimes make us a little bit confused. So just to make it easy to remember, one of the legacy which Majesty King had left to us is a 3S. Okay, 3S. What are those 3S? The first S is sagacity. S for sagacity. What does sagacity mean? Sagacity means acuteness of mental discernment and soundness of judgment. In other words, to know and practice of moderation in everything we do, speak, and think. Basically, what is really meant was to have that judgment in how we live, to be normal human being. It doesn't mean that what is a moderation in a sense that moderate in your greed or moderate in your lifestyle. No. You can live the way you want it, provided it doesn't hurt yourself and your economy, your society, and your environment. That's a simple formula, principle of sagacity. The second S is a spirituality. Spirituality is something very important in this world. We are living in a fragile world of impermanence. Therefore, to be able to live happily in the rapidly changing world, we need to develop quality of resiliency. The word spirituality, if I put it simply, it is a whole idea of to be mindfulness, to be mindful aware, or to meditate, to contemplate. When you are listening at the moment, although it is a very long speech, but if you have that strong concentration, mindful awareness, of course, my message will go and make you understand. But if you are thinking that I want to have my dessert soon, then you are not prudent, you are not resilient to what you are now. So that basically means that that is a samadhi. That is how you develop your concentration. That is a spirituality. Once you develop that, you are immune by other things. And the third S is sustainability. What is sustainability? Sustainability basically means that to be reasonable. Sustain, as Professor Steve has said that from a Latin etymology, it is to hold, or it is to balance. To balance is to have a cause and effect, able to reason things, what we do, what we speak, and what we think. So in a way that we can behave ourselves in these 3 S. And that is a basic foundation to achieve what we call sufficiency economy. My last part is king of sustainability. Why I defined Dharmikaraja as a king of sustainability? Dharmikaraja, Dharma in Sanskrit, Dhamma in Pali, etymologically, as Professor Steve explained, is from dhr, which means uphold. And whole idea of upholding is the same word as tenere in Latin, which is the root derivation of sustain. Sus is from sub, which means from below. Tenere is the same Latin word for dhr, that is upholding. So upholding with the ground is the word dharma. And as Steve has shown that Dharma Chakra, the first sermon of the Buddha, is talking about how do you survive in this sustainability? How do you lead your life in that balance? So what His Majesty has given to us is basically that very wisdom. How can we balance our life? Be it economic, be it family, be it environment, be our educations, be our relationship between each others. If we can balance all those things, and we can prolong that to a more peaceful way, and that is the whole idea of sustainability. So that's why when we talk about the Dharma Chakra, the first sermon, we can translate it in a modern sense to go with the United Nations motto of SDGs, or UNESCO's aim of SDGs, is that Dharma Chakra Pavatana means the discourse, which tells us about how we act upon our life sustainably. And that is what His Majesty King has been shown throughout his life with the sufficiency economy principle. And that's why His Majesty is apt to call Dharmikaraja from a very new meaning called King of Sustainability in this modern world. So may his legacy making this society sustainable peace may come true in our generation, and our future generation can experience that fruitful legacy of peace. Finally, may I end with a poem which reflects the late His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej of Thailand. More than a king, more than a leader, he was the king of hearts, the heart of Thailand and her people. Look into his eyes and you will see his people. See their sorrow, see their joy, see their smiles, see their tears. Listen to his voice and hear them speak, hear their laughter, hear their cries. He was their hope, he was their joy. He was the king of hopes, the king of dreams. He was the brightest star in the sky. More than a king, more than a leader, for 70 years, for 7 decades, he was what it means to be righteous king, the Dharmikaraja, king of sustainability. Thank you. Okay, this is, I think, dessert time. So before we have a dessert, because in order to do that, I think we should go move down there so we can enjoy his dessert equally. But if there's any question, Q&A, we want to address here for our 3 speakers here, if you have, If you don't have, it will save us time, of course. Looks like our presentation is so clear that everyone is enlightened here. Okay, so if is that so, thank you very much for Professor Steve and Dr. Prometee, because I want to stay with the Titus, but the thing is that his presentation is so lively that he will kick out of the stage, because he is so lively and so amazing that we have to go back there and then enjoy that show and then enjoy that dessert. Okay, I will pass on to Professor Titus for your presentation. Sorry for taking long presentation of mine, but anyway, everyone is waiting for your dessert, and you can feed us a very delicious one, please.